here tonight. So have a few slides up here. So the main thing for us to talk about relative to missions tonight, I would say first and foremost, I would encourage you to go to the church's website, click on resources, look at missions. Some of the information needs to be updated. Charlie and I were just talking about that yesterday via email, and there's an update coming to the website. So if you give us a week or two, it will be even more updated, but that gives you an idea as to our overall strategy and the types of things that we strive to support. And one of the things as we talk about budget in probably 3 months from now, we'll talk more about what line items go where and how we allocate those funds. But tonight we're really focusing on one of the areas that we support, and that is in South America, specifically in the country of Bolivia, the MARTINEZ'S. So I think, Daniel, if you go to the next slide there, there's a picture of Gabriel and Gloria. So how many folks here know Gabriel and or Gloria? All right, so look around if you'll notice. How do I say this, Reggie? It is the members who have been members for a long time. How's that? Because was it 96 to 99, Gabriel and Gloria were members of Heritage Baptist Church when he was here studying as part of Moody Aviation over in Elizabethton. And so the church ministered to them as they had come here to pursue some training. So a little background about the Martinez's for those that don't know. Gabriel's born in Bolivia, outside of the town or the city of Santa Cruz, city currently of about 2 million people. He met Gloria, who's from Argentina originally, while they were both going to Bible college in the city of Santa Cruz. And they basically have lived there since then, other than the stint when they lived in the United States. They lived in Johnson City for about 3 years as they studied there. They served with some missions organizations and churches here in the States in Ohio for a period of time, and then they returned to Bolivia where they've ministered ever since then. And they had worked with a team of people from World Gospel Mission, or WGM. WGM owned property there and had a fairly large contingent of missionaries in Bolivia there in Santa Cruz. Over the last few years, the number of those missionaries has dwindled, and to the point that when COVID came, a lot of those long-standing missionaries who had been on the field for many years opted to go ahead and expedite their return to the States. So in essence, Gabriel was kind of left in charge of all the WGM property and things like that. And as actually they've since transitioned the ownership of that property to a local evangelical university. And he still helps them oversee some of the property. But I guess my point in telling you that is one of the things that I really didn't appreciate until the week before Mick and I left on this trip is this was a lot more than us just going down there to see how Heritage could minister for the specific project we're talking about. We were able to minister to them because I feel like they've really felt alone there on the mission field, because being from Bolivia, they had all these relationships with American missionaries, and then all the American missionaries basically left. So they're kind of left doing their own ministry. I learned so much about the ministry that they have there. Gabriel's probably one of the most humble people I've ever met. It's like an onion. You keep peeling back the layers and realizing all the things that they've done. Some of the things they're currently doing, so in the past he's pastored churches and worked with WGM. They actually planted a church in about 2015, 2016, and Mick and I were able to attend that church with them. He no longer pastors there, but he serves as a mentor to the members of the church and to the pastor there at that church. So the things that he's passionate about right now and he's trying to focus on in the latter years of his ministry are somewhat threefold. Number one is he has a heart for family ministry. And the way he described it to us, and some of us, I'm looking around, I don't see Randy here, but what was it? There were 4 or 5 of us went to lunch with Gabriel. I think it was 2018, 2019, Reggie. And he explained that in the culture there, the men don't always love their wives and their children the same way that we might, love ours relative to the gospel commandment to do so. And so learning how to love your wife and set an example for your children is something that has to be taught a little more intentionally in the culture there. And so one of his objectives with this retreat center that we're going to talk about is for him to be able to host families from local churches and then pour into them and teach the husbands how to be better husbands, and then also minister to their wives and to some extent their children. But really he's focusing more on the husbands and wives. So that then they can go back and minister to and disciple their children. The other thing he's focusing on is mentoring and discipling young pastors, particularly in the rural communities. And so, Reggie, I think you can go ahead and go to the next slide there, Daniel. So I put some pictures up to kind of tell a story about Mick and I's experience there. So those shirts probably look familiar. So a couple of weeks before we left, I was talking to Gabriel one evening, and he was going through this whole story, and I was trying to figure out where he was going with this. He's talking about Reggie preaching, and then he said something about a T-shirt, and then I realized he said, he's like, it's my favorite verse, Micah 6:8, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, Micah 6:8, and I go over to my dresser drawer while I'm on the phone with Gabriel, and it's like, that's the shirt he's talking about. So it's got the scripture reference there on the bottom, Micah 6:8. He's like, that's my favorite verse. Do you think you could bring me one of those shirts? I'm going to tell you, we pulled that shirt out in his kitchen the morning after we arrived, and he was just like a kid at Christmas. He's like, wow, I never thought I'd actually be wearing this shirt. I mean, that's what he said. So just sending a shirt down there was huge ministry to them. But these are some folks that we were able to meet while we were there. The folks in the bottom right-hand corner, those are pastors in the local communities there in the rural areas, if you will. Reggie says it's in the jungle. I'll let you decide. I've got some pictures. But these are folks that live, go back to that one there, Daniel. So these folks in the bottom right-hand corner are folks that live in the town of Santa Rosa. It's 12 kilometers, which is 25 minutes on a bumpy dirt road from where his retreat center is. And these are pastors from the local community that he has been building relationships with. So his goal is to work with them so that they can come out and bring their families to his retreat center and be taught and discipled there. And he also wants to do retreats for pastors. So what he told us is, there's a large variation in the amount of theological training that some of these guys have, and a lot of them are simply lay pastors who have felt called to the ministry but never had formal theological training. So someone like Gabriel, with his background and experience pouring into them, can be really, really important. The folks on the top left there are, if you go back, I'm sorry, Daniel, so Mick and I are coming back on Saturday, and we look over at each other in the back, and we're like wiped out because it's a pretty long drive. They do have air conditioning, but a lot of it doesn't work, like the one in Gabriel's car. So we're riding back on this dusty dirt. Every day when I would get home, I would take a Q-tip, and the right ear, it was really black when it came out. That's the one that's beside the window on all the dirt roads. This one's usually pretty clean. Mick's window didn't roll down. I didn't have a seatbelt. He did. So, I think I was probably better off. So, but we're on the way home, and we're like, man, we're exhausted. We've been just go. We're looking forward to going home and hopefully relax tonight. And Gabriel tells us, I've got a treat for you. We'll be ready to go by 7 o'clock. And Mick and I are like, we just wanted to rest tonight. But he took us out to a restaurant. It's a local restaurant in Bolivia. The name of the restaurant is Papa John's. And so we had pizza with these folks. And this is his core ministry team, folks based in Santa Cruz. This lady that he's known for years and was in a Sunday school class many years ago. Her husband passed away, kind of ministered to her and her daughters, who are now grown over the years. And then 2 pastors from the city, and that's his kind of ministry team. And they were doing a planning session for a retreat that's starting this upcoming weekend. On Saturday, they're going to be hosting some families there. So we're able to meet them. Go to the next one there, Daniel. These are just some interesting things we saw. If you look in the bottom right corner, that one kind of turned out small. What you see there, Mick finally got the picture on day 3 that he wanted, and that was a family of 4 riding on a motorcycle down the street. Is actually very common there, and what was uncommon was to see a helmet on the motorcycles, but they did have the umbrella cycle up there. That was interesting, Mick's in the hammock there on the bottom left. And if you want a side of beef, there's some hanging right there under the Coca-Cola sign. You could pick that up. Gabriel was trying to find some ice. Mick and I didn't drink the ice. But anyway, that was some of our adventures while we were traveling back and forth between Santa Cruz and the retreat center. Can you go to the next one there, Daniel? So you decide, is this a jungle or not a jungle? The one on the left is Gabriel's orchard there. They actually have some fruit trees. We were able to eat some oranges one morning for breakfast, and they chased the chickens down, took their eggs, and we had eggs and oranges. But I guess I would call it a jungle. What do you say, Mick?
What's that big thing on the right?
Oh, that's a machete.
It's a jungle.
Yeah, if you look in the bottom middle there, Gabriel's holding the machete while I'm standing beside him. Mick had a machete. I figured if the two of them couldn't, if I need a machete, probably I'd just pick one up at that point and use one of theirs. So I didn't carry one myself, but it was a jungle. I mean, there was a monkey swinging through the trees while we were there. I think that qualifies as a jungle. We were literally sitting there eating lunch, and I interrupted Gabriel. I said, "Is that a monkey?" It is. So, here we see dogs and cats run through the yard. They had a monkey run through the yard. It was a jungle. And that's where the retreat center is. So you go to the next slide there, Daniel. We did get to go to church with him. That was a highlight for us. Charlie, I didn't tell you this. They had dancers in the service. Yeah, they had young ladies that danced and had tambourines. And it was very muted and respectful, though. I mean, I thought this is biblical, right? David danced. They had clothes on, though. So, but it was really cool to be there. Mick and I both had an opportunity to address the congregation and speak to them. And this is the church that Gabriel planted about 7 years ago. And so the little congregation there, probably less than 40 people were there for worship. There were 2 songs that Mick and I forget, there was a contemporary one that we picked up on the tune and were able to sing along. And then Gabriel had asked him to sing a hymn, and he led that, a cappella, Power in the Blood. But I'm pretty sure they were saying Power in Jesus, but I'm not sure. But I think so. But anyway, we're able to worship with the Iglesia Mundial Shekinah Church there in Santa Cruz. Next slide, Daniel. So I wanted to share these pictures because you as a congregation paid for these things. So when Gabriel was here 4 years ago, he asked us, he's like, I've got this land. So what we found out, I don't think he ever told us this, Reggie. This is land that he purchased years ago, private, personally owned, and he wants to donate this into the ministry. And when he started his project, he had actually saved about $20,000 out of funds that we send him every month for his support to start the project. Mick and I realized this is the way they do things down there is you don't like save the money and then build the whole thing, and you don't go to the bank and borrow money for building. You kind of build it in phases. So if you can put a structure with a roof, you got a place that's dry and you start having meetings and use it. And then when you get money, you put some walls around it. And then you get some more money, you put a floor in. So that's kind of where they're at. But one of the things he asked us, said, could you help us with water and electricity? So our missions funds specifically were able to pay for that power pole to be set there, which the other thing is that brought electricity to other members of that community that may not have been able to tap into that line otherwise. So he is building relationships with neighbors around his property who are basically farmers. A lot of them have tracts of land. They're 30, 40, 50 acres. They have cattle and things like that. And so he's getting involved in the community there, helping lobby for better roads. He was talking about how good a shape the road was in, and Mick and I just kind of looked at each other while we were going down through there. And then the well. So y'all had the well there so that there's clean water to drink. So Heritage supplied that. Go to the next one there, Daniel. So this is the actual retreat center. If you look in the bottom right corner, that's from the dirt road. And the retreat center is that thing back behind the palm tree there. And so I stuck a couple for the inside up there. On the outside, it's not super impressive. It's a block building that's got plaster on the outside. But the middle picture there, Gabriel and Mick kind of looking over the sanctuary area. That big long hallway is basically the 2 wings that he has to house people so they can come. Because literally the journey there So yeah, they when they have retreats, the churches will like find a truck or hire a driver and put people in the back of in a Suzu, flatbed truck and haul 20 people in for the day, and that's how they transport folks there. So getting them there and then being able to house them for a night or two as part of this is his vision. So what he's asked us to do is to come and help finish those 2 wings down that hallway so that he would have a place to house folks as part of these retreats that he puts on. But they're already doing programs there. They're doing like day programs, cooking outside under the shade trees beside the property and using the shade of the building. The other thing that y'all bought was the roof. So we talked to Gabriel, it was about a year and a half ago, and he needed some funds for a roof. Our trips have been canceled because of COVID, so we were able to take some of those funds, allocate those, and Heritage bought the roof. So Heritage basically paid for the roof on the building, the power pole that was set, and the well that was dug for his retreat center there. So you go to the next slide, Daniel. If there is, so what are our future plans? So our goal is to go back again and minister alongside him in 2023. At this point in time, and we need to talk about this as elders, we're just getting back from this trip. It was really helpful to go down there and see. We would have never had the perspective that we have now if we had not went down there and seen this in person. So, Mick, would you stand up? Because I don't know that everybody knows Mick. If you don't know Mick, this is Mick Williams. Mick is going to be kind of our point person for the Bolivia trip. Mick works for CDMA or CMDA, Christian Medical Dental Association, based in Bristol, and he's going through team leader training with them in December. So we're hoping to use some of the resources he learns there to help with our trips. But Mick and I were able to go down there and realize that this might be doable, this might not be doable. If you ask us before we went, would your folks want to stay in a hotel or would they want to stay on site? We'd have probably said, we can stay in it, because Gabriel would have said, a hotel is not far away. After realizing, it's 25 bumpy minutes away. And this is, I didn't know they still had $20 a night hotels. Now, he clarified, it was only $10 a piece for us to stay there. And it was, for a $10 hotel, I would stay there again. But we realized, just the logistics and the space and then the travel time, we're able to make some better decisions. We probably need to set up our shop here, live here, if we're going to do construction and that type of stuff. So I think we'll be able to make better decisions because of that and have a better scope of what the work will be that we're able to accomplish in the time that we would be there. So our hope is to send a team on site for a construction project next year in 2023. And that one's going to be, we're looking for folks that have, skills in construction, specifically laying tile, carpentry work, ceilings. Like he needs a ceiling installed, probably what we would call a drop ceiling with rails, those types of things. So our hope is we've got some folks here that would be willing to go and be a part of that. And I know you're thinking, well, I don't like to rough it in the jungle, or I'm not a construction worker. That's not my cup of tea. That's okay, because we have an opportunity for you. Is we really want to go down there and minister alongside them. I think it meant a great deal to them that here, and here's what Gabriel said. He never said David's here or Mick's here. When he would introduce us, he told all his friends that Heritage Baptist Church, his church from Johnson City, Tennessee, was in Bolivia ministering alongside him. And so that's our goal, is that we're able to take, we're able to take folks from Heritage and go back down there in hopefully 2024 and minister alongside him. So Mick's going to be talking this Sunday morning in a more abbreviated fashion. He'll show some pictures, tell a little bit about our trip, and make a more global announcement about these opportunities. But we wanted to bring a more full report to you tonight. And I think, did I have anything else on there, Daniel? Yeah, there's the name of the church. So these would be the prayer needs. So pray for their ministry, specifically the family mentoring and mentoring of the young pastors. Pray for the church that he planted 7 years ago, and then pray for the funds and workers to finish the project at the retreat center there. And for his team, specifically this weekend, if you would write that down, he's got a group of folks coming from a local church in Santa Rosa, I believe it is, that are going to be there this weekend for a family retreat. So if you'd pray for them, I know they'd appreciate that. And then lastly, Daniel, I think one other, just any questions, and we can, in light of time, so that everybody else is able to do their reports, we'll save the questions to the end, And then Mick and I both will be here. So if you would like to talk to either one of us, please do so.
Thanks, sir. I'm going to hop up here because I have to use this iPad, and it's not fun to carry it around up there. All right, so I'm going to give a quick finance update. We try and do these quarterly in a more formal fashion during our members' meetings because, on Sunday mornings what you see is a presentation of how we're using the funds. But I get lots of questions from the congregation about giving, expenses, and these sorts of things. And so we really, really, really like to make sure that our congregation is well informed about how those funds are being used, what the funds look like, those sorts of things. So that's what we're going to do. So first slide there, Daniel. This is just a comparison of where we are year to date as of August. So the blue represents 2021 and the orange is 2022. So if you compare the two, and you don't have to do the math there, the giving is up about $65,000 from the prior year. So if you just take the same snapshot in time, our giving is up. But praise the Lord, our expenses are up as well, about $84,000. So really that's due to a number of things. We've got increased attendance, so just the various things we do around all the folks that are here. We've had a tremendous amount of new ministry opportunities. But the really neat thing about that I'll talk about in just a moment is that so many of our new ministry opportunities, because we have such a wonderful team of folks that give us such great counsel on how to spend our funds and how we reserve funds, and then we take year-end excess and plan it in these different projects. We've been able to do an unbelievable amount of work this year inside the church, outside the church, and in missions with excess funds. And I'm going to go through those in just a moment. But so the expenses you're seeing there are specifically related to things that are part of the budget. And a lot of that's, again, the attendance increases we've seen, some new ministry opportunities. And then I did pull out a few areas that I looked at that were what you'd say is over budget, but it's a beautiful thing that they're over budget. So that's student ministry. So we've had a lot of stuff going on with our students. So that one's over, and that's a great thing. It just means we're pouring in. I don't know, is Kelly or I saw. So how many people did we have at the churros? Is that what they did at the college night with the food truck? What was that? How many kids was that? It was like 100 and yeah. Now, almost 200 people that we sponsored a food truck, right? And they came and they were able to eat and fellowship and hear about Jesus. And it was just, those sort of things are fantastic. And we've had similar things going on with the youth. Our deacon ministry, I was talking to Anthony a couple of weeks ago, and there's nothing more encouraging in my heart than when Anthony comes and says, Chris, we're getting tapped out on the funds, because they are doing so much good work. And are so just diligent to make sure that they're doing that in a way that's biblical. So our deacon ministry is a significant amount of that, those expenses being up. And then our fellowship meals and also some automotive costs that we're going to talk about here in just a moment. So that's just kind of a snapshot of where we are year to date. If you go to the next slide, Daniel. A couple of things, this is a little hard to see, that really what the goal here was to show you all, because you've heard me say before, we don't use our budget as a thermostat. In other words, we don't stand here and talk about, come on, we got to hit the target. We use it as the thermometer. And there's ways that we do that other than just the report that we see every month related to here's how much we brought in and here's how much we spent. We've got a whole series of pretty extensive analytics that Ginger has a software that as we plug in all the giving that comes in. And so this is a picture of what that looks like. There's 16 or 18 more pages to this report. It's something that myself and Ginger, I share with the elders. We look at it with parts of it with the Proverbs 3:9 team. And really that is the thermostat. This is the tool, or the thermometer. This is the tool that we use for that. And what this shows us is that each one of those periods is a month. The prior period would be the same month in 2021 versus where we're at in 2022. And basically the blue being higher than the gray means that the giving was stronger in that period. The pie chart on the other side is what we look at in terms of retention of giving. And so what we're looking at there is folks that in that same period of time were giving to the church, did they retain? In other words, are they still giving? And that's a good thermometer for us, because there are folks that move. There's people that transition to other things in their life. We've had wonderful members of our congregation move away, and it's good for us to know how that impacts the different things we're doing from a budgetary standpoint. Now, one thing I want to clarify with that, we don't have a list of names and we go, I didn't give this month. Reggie's going to have to call them. That's not how. Each household's kind of identified by a number. Now, Ginger and the folks, specifically Ginger that does all our financial administration, does make sure that people's giving is allocated to that specific number in their account, and that's how you get your giving statements, and you may use on your tax returns, those sorts of things. But we don't actually look at names. We kind of look at as households or giving units, which would be an individual or a member. That next slide is another kind of representation of this. So once we know what that retained giving looks like, what this tells us is, has that giving in those same groups increased? Is it staying at par, or has it decreased to some degree? So these are just amazing and so encouraging for us, and the color's a little off with the slide, but you can see almost 62% of what it was retained actually gave more in that specific time period, which is reflective in kind of where we're at financially. And then the others, about 27% are right there on par with what they had been, and then the others are a little bit behind. Now, that could be because we had folks that left, those sorts of things. But again, the point with this, I'd shared it with some of the elders, and Reggie had pointed out, it'd be good to share this with the congregation, let them see kind of some of the things that we look at, because I consider this, and Ginger and the Proverbs team, this is us being good stewards and paying close attention to what's going on with our finances, not more than just a spreadsheet. And of course, we do audits and all kinds of other things as well to make sure that we're above reproach in the way we handle our finances, but we also spend a lot of energy looking through this stuff as well. So with that, let me talk about year-end excess. So let's go to the next slide, Daniel. So in 2021, and again, for those of you that may not be familiar, every year we have what we would consider year-end excess. So what that's indicative of is, if we had a budget was X, giving was above that, and so whatever the delta between where we landed from a giving perspective and what our expenses were, we consider excess from that year. We've had a wonderful, blessed couple of years, particularly really since about 2018, 2019, going into 2020, where we, as just a standard, have about 4 months worth of reserve funds. So if everybody stopped giving next week, we've got more than 4 months worth of funding that could support everything that needs, that we would not have to miss a beat with any ministry, and that's an important biblical perspective that we use. But we also have reserved things like our HVAC units and our roof. And so those things are important, because if an HVAC unit goes out, we don't want to have to look at David and say, sorry, David, we're going to have to spend $20,000, $30,000 less in missions this year because we have to repair that HVAC unit. We want to have funds reserved for that so we can take care of it, and we don't want to go into debt. So that's the way we handle the reserve funds. These funds are in excess of the reserve funds and of our budget. So we had approximately $360-some thousand from 2021 that we had in excess, and this is how we've utilized a chunk of that. And what's really amazing about this, that I commented on just a moment ago, is that, so we're doing all this great work. So let's take missions, for example. We've done tons of things outside of our normal missions budget that we've used these funds for, that we don't have to sit there and go, well, that's going to really impact how we're going to give here, and what we don't have to do that. We just look here at our year-end giving, and we say, okay, we've got this special project. We need to put a roof on it. And that's where we get the funds from, versus having to try and figure out where to pull it from. So from our 2021 net excess in missions, we've had about $16,000 spent there. There's been, the vast majority of that was related to Ukraine. Everything else has come from our missions budget. There's a few little projects here and there that we've done from the missions expense. And again, the Proverbs team, when we were talking through year in excess, felt very strongly we should just take that 15% right off the top and park it over in missions, pray over that, and allocate it accordingly. So when we hit that, when we got our year-end giving and we knew where we stood, we just moved, I think it was $50-some-odd thousand, and just put it over here and said, the Lord will tell us where to use it. But we felt like that was the best way to handle the allocation of those missions funds. And so I'll talk in just a moment how much is remaining there. In our ministry areas, we've had about $47,000 we spent in those areas. So that's there's been some gifts we've given to the BCM, the Well, some other organizations on ETSU's campus that are ministering to college children or college kids. Joel's going to talk a little bit about our life ministry. I know there's several of you all that have been involved in the launch of that. So that was Heritage's response to the Roe v. Wade change. And I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am about some of the incredible stuff that group is working on. But we had a pretty good chunk of funds that we pulled out of that. And there again, we didn't have to go back and say, well, we're going to take this from children's or this from missions. We took it from this year in and seeded all the funds that were going to be needed for that ministry, that new ministry for this year. And then we've been talking about the same thing for like our counseling ministry. We can pull from that. So we use that for the life ministry, some gifts to Agape, some books, some other things we did here around the church with our ministries, like you would think of children's and youth and those sorts of things. So that's what that went to. We had about $75,000 that we spent on the campus here. Joel and I were just talking to the lady with DCS, is that who she was with? That again, relative to our life ministry, you'll hear about in just a moment. We were chatting with her, and one of the things that we shared was that we really don't focus on anything aesthetic here at Heritage. Like we don't think as a rule that's being a good steward of the funds that are given and us spend those. Now, if we're going to renovate a bathroom, we want it to be done well, but we're not going to do anything aesthetically. So I was sharing with the lady that we upgraded a lot of our kitchen equipment, and we didn't do that so we could all have wonderful meals on Wednesdays and be so blessed by that. We want to use that equipment to share Christ. And so that is looking like maybe some opportunities to feed some foster children, some foster families. And they just told us, standing out in the hallway 20 minutes ago, well, we've got all this food, we don't have anywhere to prepare it. And we said, we know where you can prepare it, and we'd love to let you use our facilities to do that. So some of the other things we've done around the campus, the kitchen upgrade, you saw the sign upgrade out front. The sign was literally falling apart, and so we had to repair that, so we did the sign. You may have noticed, if you'd paid any attention the last couple of years, there was a pretty big, huge mess out here behind the sanctuary from some water penetration issues we had. That was one that we had kicked down the road several years, and again, that's trying to be good stewards of what we do. We want to take care of our property, and so we invested about $20,000 it took to fix that. You've seen a lot of things around the lobby and the welcome area, and then some additional equipment we bought for some cleaning. And again, all of this is not around aesthetics or our comfort. We do this because we minister from this building. We have a number of ministries and organizations and people that we share Christ with using our property. So those were funds that we didn't have to figure out where to get them from. We pulled them from this bucket, and we're able to do a lot of things around our campus. And then a particular one that I pulled out there at the bottom, that about $6,000, and this is in progress. And this was just such an encouragement to us on the elders when we had the chance to do this. Some of you all are familiar with CDR, Casa de Restauración, that was the Hispanic ministry and church that met here on Heritage for how many years, Pastor? 3 or 4 years, used our building, held their, well, they found their own building. Now they're kind of a more permanent place, but they came to us and they needed a sign. They had kind of a plastic sign, this sort of thing, and Reggie had made contact with them, and we just thought it was such an amazing full circle thing. We literally funded that the week we did our new sign. So our new sign went up, and then we got to pay for a sign for a church that was not planted for here per se, but we strongly partnered with, that's doing amazing ministry, and they're going to be over near the Mahoney's building over there, the Snow Memorial building over there. Yeah, so you're going to see that sign, and again, just like the well in Bolivia, you all paid for the sign for CDR, so we were excited about that. So that's how we've utilized some of those funds from last year. If you'll go to the next slide, Daniel. What's remaining out of those funds, we've still got about $30,000 that is earmarked for missions. David's obviously evaluating some opportunities with Bolivia with that. We also, I did talk to Mick about, they ran into some different opportunities that made in Africa during the trip they were over there. We've been talking with Matthew Hembry, who, as you know, is in Puerto Rico, which obviously experienced a pretty devastating scenario with the hurricane, not Ian that's come through now, but the one that was at Fiona, I think. That just went through there. So I've been in contact with him. Matthew's been emailing me, and we've got some things that he's looking at that we're going to partner. So that's what we would use those funds for. We've got about $8,000 sitting in an elder fund that we use as folks may need. Maybe they're going to seminary. Maybe they're going, and there's ways that we can help them partner with that. So that's one that us as elders can look at, and we don't have to go take it from another budget. We can allocate it according to needs that come up to us. And then the big one is the $137,000 that we're just kind of have parked in a Heritage Ministries bucket. If you recall the discussion we had about this very early on this year, we had thought about doing some additional renovation to open up some needed space in the 400 wing, but with everything going on in Ukraine and just all the needs we knew that we had, we very prayerfully felt like we didn't need to focus on us right now. We needed to have funds available for other ministries. And so we kind of parked that in that fund, and God has blessed that. You'll probably see some things that we're going to do in the coffee bar and some other areas because that space is becoming very highly utilized. But as far as a full-blown renovation, we somewhat stepped back from that to set this fund aside so that we could use it for other things. A couple of big things that are going to come out of that. Joe, how many youth are we up to now on average? 40 to 50 youth. That is incredible. That's just such a blessing. We're super excited about that. Guess how many seats we got in a van? It ain't 40 or 50. If you remember, we just bought a new van a couple years ago, cash, paid for it because of the faithfulness of this congregation. We didn't have to go into debt. We didn't have to borrow. We didn't have to buy. We bought one, and we've now ordered a second one. So because we have such a growth in our youth, and we're just so excited about that, but we need a way to transport them. And it kind of relates back to some of those overages I talked about. Our Proverbs team, what we looked at was based on the rental expenses we're paying to rent vans, not only for the youth, but to go on various mission trips and things. That'll have about a 3-year return on the investment. So if we pay for a new van, the same amount we would have paid out in rentals over about 3 years, we actually pay for the van. So that was kind of a no-brainer for us. The Proverbs team was supportive of that. So we have one on order. They told us it would take about 6 months to build it. So it's going to be a minute on the van. But we did order one, and that'll probably be paid for, again, in cash. We won't have to borrow anything and got great prices on it, and we use out of those funds. So in terms of 2023 budget, next slide, Daniel. This is just to give you guys some timelines. I've gone through this a couple times on Sunday mornings. We just got the first pass at the different ministry budgets for 2023. That was due last week, but I'm still getting those in right now, working with Ginger on those. We'll review with the elders on October 5th. We're going to try and have the first draft out October 19th. The first draft of the budget. We'll review and refine that over between October and November. Should have the final draft ready around mid-November, and there's several of you all that are part of that process. And then next slide, Daniel. And then we'll go on. We'll have a final review with the elders that Wednesday, November the 16th. We'll do a budget presentation during this Wednesday meeting like we normally do on November 30th. And then we'll put it forward for the budget recommendation to the church. We'll have per our bylaws, we'll have the 2 weeks, and we'll vote on that December 18th. So there's a lot of work to do on the budget between now and the end of the year, and it's just such an important book of work. The last thing I'll do is put a plug in if you would like to be part of that, because we have we just have such a blessing that we have these folks, the Proverbs team and other folks that work with myself and Ginger and talk with the elders about how we're faithful using the funds of Heritage and where we should put our energy and our time in that regard. You're welcome to join us. We've got our next meeting. It'll be this Sunday morning. We meet during the CG hour once a month, and we just kind of breeze through some of the updates on the financials, and then we talk about how we're using the funds. And anybody's welcome to join that. So if you have a particular interest in that or you just want to come in here, please come and join us. Let me know, and I'll make sure you know where we're meeting. But we would love to have you involved with that. And that is all that I have. Again, if you have questions, I'll be down, and then we'll take some questions at the end. Turn it over to Joel.
Thank you, sir. I'll be much quicker than those guys. I have no slides at all and a half a sheet of paper. But I did just want to give a quick update on Miranda. Did Robert say anything when he was given this prayer request? So Miranda is home. That is a wonderful blessing. The update I got from Marla is that she is home, she is doing well, feeling better, and sleeping better. I do believe that God did the miraculous. She's not fully healed yet. Physically, she's doing better with a lot of the things that happened. There's some residual brain things, so they're going to be doing some therapy for memory and things like that, and they're exploring different options to do that. So do please continue to pray, but I think as far as the whole goes, they're excited and glad to be at home and that physically she's doing well, but I think there's some long-term things that they're hoping with some therapy that can go well. But praise the Lord. So thank you all for your prayers. Coming up shortly, we're going to, I know hurricanes are hitting in Florida, but recently we had flooding in Kentucky, and we're just now still headed in about a week and a half. I'm going to take a team to Kentucky to do some disaster relief with Samaritan's Purse, and then maybe we'll line up a trip to go down to Florida. You never know. So, and excited for that. And even as Chris is talking about all of that, it is exciting to be able to go and do these things freely and not always have to worry. And many times we do these trips, people just give and say, hey, I want to give because I know there's a team getting ready to go here or a team getting ready to go there. And that's a wonderful thing. And I'm just so glad to be able to be a part of that. But keep that team in prayer. The youth are headed to an apologetics conference near the end of the month. So keep us in prayer for that. It's always a good time. We're going to Camp Awanata, where it's all part of the Look Up Lodge. So we take our children to a Look Up Lodge camp, and then we take the youth this past year to a Look Up Lodge teen camp. It was wonderful. And then last year we went to year 1 of the Apologetics Conference. So this is year 2 of a 3-year thing. So I know many of them are looking forward to that. We've enjoyed doing the family skates, and we went to Just Jump. This month we're coming up to go to Fender's Farm. I know I think there was Angela's asking. She's like, is it at 2 or 4? Because there was a couple different times. And it's probably very much my fault as we put those times a lot of places. So we're going to meet at 4 o'clock, if you can, at Fender's Farm for some family fun. That was a lot of F's right there. At our family event. So come on down. We can sign up ahead of time, and that'll give us group discount tickets, and that gives you access to the maze and all the different things that the kids can do. So we're going to go there at 4 o'clock on the 16th. So I hope you can make it. Chris mentioned the Life Ministries. I'm not super involved, but I'll give a quick little update as I'm involved with some. I know as far as the 3 branches with the pregnancies, that there's a group going to talk with and meet with Agape Women's Ministry just this next week to see how better we can come alongside and work with them and be a support for them and encourage them in what they're doing and be a part. As far as the fostering branch of that, Heritage is going to host Tennessee Kids Belong, and they're bringing in multiple different foster agencies to recruit foster parents. So we've put this out, I think, in the newspaper. We've done Facebook blasts. We've notified different churches. So if you're interested, the goal in this fair is to let people answer questions. We're going to meet some foster families and some kids that have been in the foster program, all with the hopes of raising up some foster families. Currently, there are, I guess probably since COVID, for who knows why, a variety of different reasons, there's less workers as far as caseworkers, and there's more kids in the program, and that leads to a lot of difficult situations where many times, and this is what I was meeting with Kim about, looking through the building to see how we can possibly help out. Many nights there are probably between 3 and 10 to 12 kids that workers are now having to pull these 24-hour shifts because after they're done and after they get the kids from the school, they have to go somewhere and they have to find a place to feed them and then a place to wash clothes and let the kids get showers and things like that and then go to sleep. And generally, they do that all at the office. Well, you can tell how that would get pretty wearisome for the workers and for the kids. So that's one way we're trying to figure out. So if we can get a whole lot of foster families, then they won't have to use our kitchen. So let's do both. We'll offer the kitchen, but we'll hopefully find them some homes. And then as far as it goes with adoption, I know that we have set aside funds and things like that to help with families. So from Heritage specifically, that if you're interested in adopting, please let us know. And if you are, maybe come to that fair, because then sometimes people foster to adopt. So that would be a good way to transition into that. So exciting that team that you guys have put together is moving quickly, and it's exciting to see people getting involved in the things that they're passionate about. So that's kind of the Life Ministries update. As far as children's go, I know the last time we had these meetings, I talked about changes coming down the road, and we're still in the process of making some of those changes. Brian's going to come up here in a little bit, but he and I have been working through some of the children's procedures, how we do things there. We went from over there to over here to back over there in the midst of COVID, and I think it was some different changes and things like that. So just updating all of that. We're heavily using and leaning on Ministry Safe, which is an organization that kind of keeps ministries safe. So they have a lot of great paperwork and processes and trainings and things like that. So we're looking at how to do that. And kind of going back to the Life Ministries and with children, pretty soon, probably in November, so just kind of a heads up, and we'll put this out to people. We're going to do some trainings so that Heritage can become a foster-friendly church. So what that means is if there's foster families and they're looking for things to do or places where they can go, Heritage would be on a list of churches. And what that means is that probably our staff and then most of our teachers, nursery workers, we've all been through different trainings so that we are ready for and understand kids that have been through trauma. So we're going to have some of those trainings. I want to do them in person. They're a little lengthy, but I think it would just be a good time, and we'll offer a couple different time slots in case you can have to break that up. But excited to be able to do that, one, for our kids' safety, but then to also be, I think, just a way to reach out and let the community know that we love them and we're here for them in whatever way that may be, is exciting to do. So I'm excited with a lot of the direction that we're going with that. Brian is going to come up in just a minute to talk a little bit about Sunday morning. We had those discussions about the app. I just wanted to quick say, because I've had some requests for like parents requesting to join some, there's like children's classes if you go in the groups, and there's youth classes. You don't have to join those. Those are there more as visitors come in and they see that we have children's classes. That request to join is more like I will give them more information on how we run Sunday school. So our attendance and all of that runs through our check-in system, which is all part of the Planning Center Online, which is this network that we're using more for all the youth and parents for Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, and Wednesdays. We're just going to manually add those in as the kids. We're not going to use that as a way to discuss different things we're doing in class. So just in case anyone's listening who was making those requests, I'll get an email out to you explaining why I'm not going to accept your request into those groups. Those are kind of going to be closed groups, but I will definitely give you some more information. But on that note, I'm going to turn things over to our Mr. Brian. 7:30, so you got 2 minutes and then time for questions.
Right, 2 minutes. So just a quick ministry update. Our prayer team is encouraging members to join several areas. We have a group who prays during our worship service. So isn't that cool? We have a group just praying that our worship service would go smoothly. 2 other areas that our prayer team has a need for, to join a team who prays after the service for people who would like to come up for prayer, and also just people as needs come up throughout the week. There's a prayer chain, and people receive prayers. So those are the 3 ministry areas, because prayer is ministry, and you don't particularly have to, as a Christian, we're all able to pray, and that's certainly a gift that we all can. So if you have a desire to do that, please see Robert English or Paul Schmidt. A second update would be with our app. So I've had the privilege really to work with all of you guys on how to do things better. A lot of under the hood stuff, a lot of stuff with Joel, and just various things that maybe aren't directly pertaining to ministry, but certainly help things run more smoothly. So about the app training, I just want to start off by saying thank you. I understand. I worked in technology retail for a number of years, that it can be frustrating sometimes. But I just wanted to say thank you guys for just being patient as we kind of slowly transition. And we had a lot of discussions about how to make things better. Some of them, really all of them, were how well it would be received to make things as easy and succinct as possible that would help us just be able to do real ministry and community and help people get connected to the church. So with that being said, I do just want to open things up very briefly for feedback. Just because we like it, that doesn't mean that everybody likes it. So we want to hear what you all have to say. So I just want to open it up for any particular comments or questions for these next several minutes. Yes. Yes. Because other people probably have similar questions that you all do. Thank you so much, Molly.
Is it on? I hate talking on a microphone. Is the app, are there things that are just on the app? In other words, I don't have a smartphone and I was you know, I can't get an app.
Yes.
And I have a computer.
I see
but
what you're saying.
I'm missing that.
That's an
I
excellent
can't download
question.
the app.
So what she's essentially saying is there content that's exclusive to this new app that I would be missing out on if I had a not smartphone? You can access everything in the new Church Center app through the web. So you can log in to the web. You have full access to the directory and groups. Daniel, way ahead of me. Also, quick shout out to Daniel, not only for doing the training, not talking you up, I did think it went really well. He posted a YouTube video, full 27 minutes long with timestamps. So if any of you guys have particular questions, the video is on Heritage, our YouTube channel, titled Heritage App Overview. Any other questions? Feedback, concerns, pain points? Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you. Coming from a person of a certain age, it wasn't hard.
Thank you. That means a lot to hear. In general, any questions about any of these particular ministry areas we all received updates on today? Yep. Thank you,
Forgive
Molly.
me for being creative, but my mind is just bent that way. And when I saw that Gabriel liked the t-shirt, my mind was going, can't we make them some t-shirts in Spanish? Because he is a ministry, and the whole reason for the t-shirts was to spread the gospel, I thought. So wouldn't that be cool?
We will take that down as notes. They're very soft. I love our t-shirts, so I can see why Gabriel enjoys them so much. Any other questions that anybody else has? I believe Charlie's going to close us out with prayer. So, okay.
Everybody wants to see your pretty face again. Yeah. I do want to make sure there are no other questions. And if anybody is watching on the live stream, you really didn't have anything else to do tonight, but we'll put the number that you can text your question to. You'll have to hurry. There you go. That's Reggie's number, so be nice. You can text the question there, and if you don't get it in time, we'll make sure we get you an answer, though. So please go ahead and make sure you do that. Anybody in here? Anybody else? You got a question or bread? Okay, he has bread. Yeah, anybody? Any wine? We'll go ahead and have communion. Okay, Daniel, do you have a question? Is there an approximate time frame for the 2023 trip to Bolivia? We're looking at June.
Summer there is winter there. It's winter there.
Summer is winter there.
We don't want to go in their summer.
We do not want to go in their summer. Get fewer people volunteering for that. Okay. All right, I'm going to assume you don't have a question you want to ask in front of everybody. If you have one, though, that you want to ask in private, please stop any elder anytime. We'd be glad to answer any questions you may have. Let's pray. Father, you are worthy of all praise as we have experienced blessing after blessing after blessing, and it is by the same grace that saved our souls. We don't deserve it. You have chosen to pour out blessing upon this church, and we just want to thank you for it and give you praise for it. We want to pray that it will continue, that not only are we blessed in the material things and the ministry opportunities that we have going on, but blessed in this unity and this sweet fellowship. And there is a genuine encouraging of the faith every time we gather together, and that is the work of your Spirit. We want to say thank you for that. continue to bring us to that unity, and that we're all together motivated to share the gospel and to show the love of Christ in this city and beyond, and continue to open doors and provide the resources, Lord, and we will continue to follow after you. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all for coming.